at Incredible Drum Museum in Szeged in Hungary with Mr. Peter Erskine, master drummer, professor, and an artist. And we're going to walk around the museum, have a look at some of the vintage kits, and just have a look at this paradise for drummers and undiscovered secret of ours. And I hope you enjoy. So what do you think? What does this mean for you? I mean, this museum and this effort that's been put in.
Well, it's a place. I think it represents the finest collection I've seen of drums, and of course, drummers love drums, and it's great fun to see this stuff. But it's also, in a larger sense, so important because it documents the history of this relatively very young instrument. The drum set has not been around for so many years, not like other instruments, and I think Sándor has created like you said, a mecca, a home, and as such, it's a safe place for these instruments. It's a proper place for them to be. They're not hidden away from view. They're not collecting dust or value in some collector's private home or shelves, but it's here for everyone to see. Now, admittedly, Hungary has not been a major crossroads in recent years for a lot of traveling musicians, but the museum is becoming so famous that more and more drummers are like, yeah, I must go, or I was there. Yeah. So we're just a short distance from Budapest, and well, I have enough faith and trust in Sándor and his museum that I donated many of my original instruments to be part of the collection.
How did that feel to you to, give away your children after so many years?
It felt good.
Yeah.
It felt like they're in a good place, and we should look at the company that they'll be in, because it's a tremendous collection of instruments.
Yeah. So let's have a look around.
Let's look. Start here with, this must be one of the masterpieces, Slingerland Radio King. And I can't give you any of the historical facts, but I can tell you this is just a beautiful, beautiful drum set. And probably one of the most valuable ones here, I would imagine. A few things I didn't know back in the day, that tom-toms were mounted directly on the hoop. They didn't drill into the shell, but they would mount them on the hoop. It's an interesting idea.
But Buddy Rich played a Radio King.
He played Radio King in the old days, and then again near the end of his life, Buddy was playing on a Radio King drum set. Next to it is a 1960s vintage Rogers kit, which is also one of those holy grail instruments. Rogers was the first drum company that had the ball and socket for total flexibility and yet maximum strength, an idea that was later adopted and adapted by Yamaha. Of course, many pedals, the Rogers pedals. Here are the Ludwig pedals. There's a ghost pedal. Speed King, which all of us used to play in the 1960s, and there you go. There's a Ludwig kit.
Your opinion on how much impact did Ringo have on the music world?
Well,
What kind of drummer is he, in your opinion?
Ringo was the perfect drummer for the Beatles,
Right.
I think. Even though Ringo's not playing drums on all the tracks, I think Paul McCartney is playing on a few.
Right.
According to Bernard Purdie, he's playing on a few
Right,
too.
right,
But I
that's
think
what I
that's
what he said.
That's been disputed. Bernard's played on plenty of other great tracks of other artists, but the impact of the Beatles, you know, the Beatles came along just a few years after the development of the plastic drum head. And the plastic drum head made it possible for the drums to be hit that much harder and for the music to be louder consistently. So between the development of the bass amplifier and the plastic drum head, it changed the world. Now, as soon as the Beatles appeared on American television, on the Ed Sullivan Show,
Right.
the Ludwig Drum Company went into a 24-hour manufacturing schedule and rotation. They were just making drums literally night and day.
Right.
Many of today's finest drummers were inspired to become musicians because of the Beatles. I was already playing the drums, and I was a bit of a jazz snob. And in fact, when I asked my father to bring me home a record by this new group called the Beatles, he brought me a John Coltrane album with Elvin Jones instead. So I consider myself lucky. Well, I was a bit of a jazz guy anyway, but I like the Beatles, and sure, their music was part of the soundtrack of our growing up.
Yeah, it was the Mercy beat, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Of Liverpool.
It had a little bit of swing to it.
Yeah.
It wasn't quite straight up and down. That came along later.
Right.
And also Ringo playing a lot of the ride stuff on the floor tom.
Yeah.
You know, with the right hand. So it was a
Pretty unique, unique approach,
great stuff.
wasn't it?
Wow, look at that. Let's see, a home outfit. That's so cool. It's so portable.
So,
Now here's Collado made a pedal. Some of these pedals are, look at this guy. That's a real,
this is like the complete pedal history from day one, isn't it?
here are some of the worst pedals ever made, these Slingerland pedals. I played these for a while. At one point it was called the Yellow Jacket. It was a yellow pedal, and it was really terrible. Some people like this one. When I tried this one, I broke it. I tried these, I broke it. I had a Ghost pedal, I broke that. I had a Speed King, I broke one of those.
I'm never going to lend you a pedal, man.
No. Now I don't break them, but when I was young, I used to really hit these things
Give into
hard.
it.
And now over here is a Yamaha pedal, and I showed a photograph of this pedal. I took a photograph, and I showed a photograph of the pedal to, that's a great pedal, the Camco. That was so. Rogers was always nice, felt a little flimsy to me. Trixon one looks pretty awful. Somewhere there's this Yamaha pedal, and the Yamaha people were amazed because none of them remembered it. They were like, wow, we haven't seen this in. But it's fascinating how in such a relatively small industry, how many variations that people came up with. There it is. Yeah, no one in Japan remembered this pedal. They're like, wow.
But this is a Japanese model, isn't it?
Yeah, well, no wonder they didn't remember it. It's terrible. One of the great drum sets of all time. Yeah, this is the one that really flipped them out. And that was the American, that was kind of the Speed King concept. Terrible. Thank you. But this Trixon drum set.
You don't see so many of those around anymore.
Oh, they're very rare.
I
mean, you don't see very many of these people around anymore either. The idea of the funny shaped drum, of course, was that there were two chambers on the inside. The drum is not round, but it's shaped like an egg, and you played it with two pedals.
Right.
And there was a smaller chamber, in theory, to give you one sound, and then the larger. I don't know how well that worked, but they sure had a unique look. They also, as you can see in this photo, they made drums where you had a larger head size.
Right.
You know, on the top or bottom.
They were like artists, creative people, weren't they?
They were creative, but it's I don't know.
A little bit too creative.
I don't know what they sounded like, but interesting, single-headed. The sonar key type of lug. This, it's rare to see a Trixon kit in such good condition.
Right.
This sonar kit here, I saw a photograph of this. I was in the airport, and right behind me was Jojo Mayer.
All right.
And he pulled out a photo of this kit, and he told me that his father had received it from Kenny Clark, and then the father gave it to Jojo, and then Jojo, being a teenager, painted the entire kit, hardware, everything, black spray paint. And then they gave it to the shop with very little expectation, and they brought it back to life. This is a tremendous piece of history right here, that Kenny Clark played this exact kit. It's as good as it gets.
What in your mind have been some of the major changes, in drum making, to make the drums sound as good as they do today?
Well, consistency has really been the biggest byproduct. Drums are now round.
Right.
That sounds silly, but perfectly round. But drums weren't round. I mean, when I was using Slingerland drums, and they were terrific drums, but they weren't always round, and it was quite difficult. I had a floor tom. I just couldn't do anything with it.
But you used that on the Weather Report.
The Weather Report 830 album.
You still have that kit?
No, I don't know what happened to it. When I moved between Los Angeles and New York, back and forth, there's just a lot of equipment just kind of went missing. Yeah, that kit, I don't know what happened.
So do you find it valuable for drummers to have vintage kits? I mean, in their collection?
Well,
to use for recording?
If it pleases you. I mean, I have some snare drums that I use for recording. I have an old Ludwig drum, and my Rogers Dynasonic from when I was in high school. It's a beautiful drum. In the living room of our home, we've put on display about we have 16 snare drums on the wall. Wow, it's nice, very decorative, and I'll use them from time to time. I'll say, oh, I want to take this to the recording studio. And some people like to collect things just because they're things of beauty. I mean, they're shiny. They represent where we come from. When every drummer I know, when he or she were young, would just spend hours looking at a drum catalog and looking at the photos and just dreaming someday of playing on something like this. So when we see this stuff, it reminds us of who we are, where we came.
Yeah, I mean, there's people like Steve Jordan who has said that every song or every piece of music has its own identity. You know, so he likes to sort of tailor the music and pick specific drums or snare drums to fit the music.
Yeah, and maybe more so with pop. I mean, when you're doing a jazz album, it's more like the concept of playing live, and so you wouldn't change things too much. But for the kind of music that Steve plays, that makes perfect sense. Yeah. Every song does have a story. It's nice to have old drums, and they are fun to collect, but for me, I realized that a lot of these instruments I was keeping, I wasn't going to use them, and I didn't want to sell them, and I wondered where they would wind up, and then Shandor proposed this idea of my drums joining this collection.
So what does that mean for you, that you are getting a special place here in the drum museum? I mean, probably the biggest drum museum in the world. I mean, dedicated.
I think so.
Drum set.
Oh, it's a great honor. And Shandor and I have a history. We go back quite a few years, but it's a great honor, and I feel very good knowing that my stuff will have a home here and won't be scattered to the four winds. And it's nice that we could do this while I'm still here to kind of oversee it. And it's nice not to be dead, you know. I'm very proud of the recordings I've made recently on fuzzy music with Alan Pasqua, and we've known each other since university days. 40 years we've played together. The Weather Report albums, a couple of the albums with Steps Ahead. I like that. I like the work I was able to do on ECM, and I like some of the big band stuff I've been doing recently. Bob Florence, big band, all the Vince Mendoza projects. There's a new recording coming out. Kind of completes the circle. It's the music of Joe Zawinul, played by the Metropole Orchestra, based up over in the Netherlands. And Vince Mendoza conducted. Alex Acuna and myself collaborated on this, along with Victor Bailey from Weather Report, Jim Beard, a wonderful keyboard player. Vince did all the writing, and with this symphony orchestra, but they're also like a jazz band. And we played in the Concertgebouw in Amsterdam as well as the North Sea Jazz Festival. I just heard the mixes, and it's really exciting. It's probably some of the better playing I think I've done. And this new big band album called the Avatar Sessions.
Right.
Nothing to do with the movie. Better than the movie.
But it sounds good.
It's great.
The name sounds good.
Well, the name sounds good. The name's a mistake now, but the studio was Avatar Studios. Anyway, my wife told me at the end of the fourth day, when I came home, she said, "I've never seen you come home like this." I said, "Well," she's so excited about a project. So I'm kind of tickled by those, but maybe the next one will be next year. Who knows?
It's been a great pleasure meeting you
And you
going,
too, and hearing you
around.
last night. This guy's a great drummer, and I enjoyed very much
I enjoyed
your performance.
meeting you. So we're gonna say goodbye, and we hope you enjoyed this short visit to the Drum Museum in Szeged in Hungary. And we'll see you all very soon.
This is the place to be. Da 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 da.